The purpose of us recording today is we want to look back at the new hire orientation, and we want to make sure that we have some of these trainings that you'll be seeing today stored in our files. So that's the reason we're going to be recording. Again, my name is Niall Franks, the Director of Human Resources. I can be found working remotely, and when I'm on site, I'm at the Liz Building, which is at 1377 R Street. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. If you have technical capabilities to turn your cameras on, we're going to ask that everybody turn their cameras on so that we can try to engage with everyone. That would be great. Thank you. Okay, and then you just want to make sure that while we're presenting, if you're not asking any questions, you put your microphones on mute just to avoid any type of feedback noise and things like that. We're going to be showing some videos throughout the day that will help, hopefully help give you some context into who we are and the communities that we serve and our impact on those communities. So I'm going to start the orientation today by showing our first video. It's called Going the Extra Mile. Give me 1 second. Let me get that queued up.
I think I would be dead without Whitman Walker. And I also would not be able to, I mean, even with surviving and being here at Whitman Walker, I have learned to talk about having the virus.
Legal services started in 1986 when Jim Graham hired the first attorney after realizing he himself couldn't handle all of the legal needs of the clients. And back then he was helping people prepare for death. He was helping people pursue disability benefits and to make accommodations either in the hospital or with their families, knowing that death was right around the corner. And today, we still offer those services, but very few people take us up on them. So we're helping people live longer lives. We're helping them plan for a long life rather than plan for death.
The legal clinic brings in a service. So they all need to change their name and gender documents, right? And it ties them. I mean, once they're coming into the clinic for this service, we're able to potentially get them health care, mental health care, sign them up for public benefits. Really, the entire breadth of services Whitman Walker offers is then open and available to the client.
Things like access to identification that matches who you are is huge. And the access to a clinic or a facility that will in some way help you to be able to get access to those things that help you to live your life in the most normal way fashion, free of discrimination as possible. These are huge and unimaginable things.
So I guess that's why it's so important to a transgender woman to have papers in here, and not just because of that. It's also good or feels good because you can do your transition legally. Because I had changed my name and I had changed my gender now. So I feel free to go to look for a job, to look for education, to look for everything without being judged.
And they're so into helping you. You know, it really feels like a place that I can come to. And I have psychiatry here also, along with dental and my legal group. And more I find that this is the place to be.
Through Whitman Walker, my gender marker was changed. My name was changed. I have identity cards that, show who I am. My case has moved. My case was actually moved pretty fast. In 3-4 months, I had my asylum. I'm very grateful for that.
We need Whitman Walker. We need to walk. We need to run in order to make money. We have to donate monies from different places. And it's been done over the years, and it's going to continue to be done because we need this.
I would say that whoever is putting their money in Whitman Walker, they are putting money at the right place, and the impact that they will see it will be actually overwhelming, because we need these services, and not many people are actually giving these services.
Whitman Walker is not just for people living with HIV. It's not just for people who are transgender. It's not just for white people. It's not just for black people. It's for everyone. It's a community effort. I mean, they work with everyone.
Whitman Walker takes you where you are and helps you survive.
What do you all think?
Nice video.
I'm very impressed. Sorry, go ahead.
Ms. Franks, I just wanted to say this is Keisha Williams. I had joined by phone and by video, so I just wanted to let you know that I'm still here, but I got off on the phone line.
Okay, great, thank you. Any initial thoughts on the video?
It was very touching. It's nice that people can depend on such an organization to bring, you know, joy and comfort, you know, to their lives. So it was touching to me that many people can really, you know, talk about Whitman Walker in a positive way.
Yeah, this is Sanj, and I agree with that. It was really impactful to hear some of the experiences that folks have had at Whitman Walker and how impactful it's been to their lives. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I also agree. I love the fact that you guys offer not just medical, but the whole package, and you tend to help people for everything they need. So I like that premise.
Yeah, it's nice. It's always nice to hear from our patients and clients directly about the impact we're having on their lives. And I know that as you get acclimated to your roles here at Whitman Walker, you'll have more opportunities to connect with the communities, you know, that we serve. I understand joining us today are some folks from Maxor. We have some folks that are going to be joining from LabCorp. And while you all partner with Whitman Walker, when patients and clients walk through the door, you are Whitman Walker. So with that being said, I'm going to hand off over to Dee Magrini. And I'm going to kind of put my camera, I'm going to close my camera, put my phone on mute, but I'll be here. So Dee, if there's anything that you're needing, just throw it in the chat.
Very good. Do you need to turn over control to me, or do I have that?
You have it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Niall, and good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, well, welcome to Whitman Walker. No kidding. Niall, that was a great open, and I think that video really does frame a lot of the culture we're going to talk to you about. Over the course of the day, you'll get a lot of technical information, but it will be infused with the heart of what you just saw. So I want to kind of tell you a little bit about myself, and then find out some things from you, and we'll go into the training proper after that. So my name is Dee Magrini. I am, my top line thing is I'm a native Washingtonian. This is my home. I'm absolutely invested in the city and its residents. My title here is Director of External Training, which means that I offer training to doctors, nurses, social workers, and allied staff on how to be more LGBT culturally competent. But in the mix of all that, I also talk about implicit bias around all groups and how we can examine ourselves and be rid of a real barrier and how some folks experience barriers to care. My real goal is not so much to change hearts and minds. I never know when I go to talk to folks what their perception of, if we're talking succinctly about the LGBT community, I'm never clear on what their feeling opinion is around that topic. And over the years, it's come to matter to me less, unless there's something glaring. What I hope for, what I strive for in these talks is to clear up any misconceptions that my audience might have, the best I can, to allow some room for air. So this is a space where you can talk about challenges or successes you see in this work. You can ask any question you have, whether it seems related to this or not. I think in some ways, if it comes up for you, it's a relevant question. There's no bad questions. I've heard everything at this point, so it's all fine. Know that this is as much as anyone can offer anyone safe space. That's my goal in here today. So that's me. So I'd like to meet you. I think a lot of you, I'm looking at 2 people, but I think I actually have 3 or 4 people on the line. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves and tell me where you're working, or tell the rest of us where you're working and how you came to be here, just how you landed at Whitman Walker. So Keisha, since I can see you, I'll start with you. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Keisha Williams. I am born and raised in DC. I've been here all my life. Right now, I am working full-time at Children's National Hospital. I have been a technician at Children's for 12 and a half years. Just recently, I transitioned into a new role of being a quality control specialist. And what brought me to Whitman Walker, to be honest, is that I was looking to purchase a home in DC, and I needed a little more income. And I had a former partner at Children's that worked at Whitman Walker, working with the Maxor Pharmacy, and he introduced me to the company. And his name is Emmanuel Sutton, and that's how I came onto Whitman Walker. I've had 1 day of training so far, and that 1 day was really great. I had experience of working at Safeway Pharmacy, and just that 1 day at Whitman Walker, I was like, wow, things are, kind of different here, not more so from, the atmosphere, but just their workflow of doing things. It wasn't as, I would say, not really complicated, but it was a little different from what I was used to working at Safeway. So I really, appreciated learning the new flow of things, and I can't wait to learn more.
Thank you, Keisha. That was a lovely introduction, and I welcome you again personally. So thank you for being here. Sharon, I can see you. Can you do that?
Okay. Hi, my name is Sharon Corbett. I don't live in DC, unfortunately. I live in Virginia. I'm a pharmacist, and I've been a pharmacist for over 30 years now. Have worked in retail for all that time. And over the last year, I just thought that I've had enough of that type of work. And I took a break and was trying to figure out what to do with the rest of my life, kind of thing. And one of my former bosses works for Whitman Walker, and she recommended me trying to get a job there. So I've been hired as a PRN, just a part-time. I'm going to not just be working at Whitman Walker, but apparently at the other 2 pharmacies too, where needed. I've only had, just like Keisha, just 1 day this week at Whitman Walker, and I agree with her, it's totally different. I like the way it's set up. I like the way things are run. It's looks like it's more it's more patient oriented than how retail is now. Retail has really changed to more to like a numbers kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And numbers and metrics is the thing, and that was just driving me nuts. So I hope to learn the new way of doing things for Whitman Walker. I really like, it seems like I'm really something I'm really gonna like. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot and having new experiences.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sharon, and welcome to you. Yes, glad to have you. And I have one other person.
Yeah, this is Sanj. I'm having some work done in the house today, so I'll be on and off camera throughout the day.
Okay, that's fine.
But
how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Good morning to everyone. I'm happy to be here with y'all today. So my name is Sanj. I'm actually going to be a temporary qualitative data coder for one of the studies that Whitman Walker is running.
Okay.
So I'm just going to be sort of helping code some qualitative data that's being collected and kind of shape the approach that we'll be taking to the qualitative data, and probably will be with Whitman Walker for maybe a month and a half. But I'm excited to have the time that I have with the organization.
Oh, Sanj, I couldn't be more glad to hear you and see you today. I just spent some time last night learning about sexual orientation, gender identity, data gathering, and Black women in coding. And I know that we really need you where you are. I felt like, oh, I have language that if somebody doesn't translate, I'll never be seen. So
absolutely,
I appreciate you very much, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, so that's the kind of geeky stuff we do when we're off work. We actually learn about coding and bias and all that. There's one thing I missed in my introduction of myself to you. Does anybody recognize where I fell off?
Nope.
I know you don't. I know you don't. It's not a trick question. I really did fall off. No kidding. So let me start again. My name is Dee McGreeny, and my pronouns are she and her. That tiny bit makes my first introduction not moot, but it gives you more information about who I might be. My view, so I'm open to explaining or illuminating what gender is. I'm open to hearing yours because I offered my own. And that safe space I sort of pointed at, that little bit of acknowledgement creates a friendly atmosphere for a lot of our clients, a lot of our staff. That's where you've landed, is in a place that is tender, not only towards our service provision, that's the highest, but riding along with that is our tending to people. That's where we started. That's the heart of this thing, is to see each and every individual that we meet in that way. Hi, my name is Dee. These are my pronouns. How can I best help you? That's the initial question for almost anybody here. So, let me tell you a little bit about where you're sitting and why we even exist. The organization is about 43 years old now, which seems amazing to me because I have not been here for 43 years, although it might seem that way. But our existence, it does seem like watching a child grow. Sometimes you turn around and they're taller than you, or they've broadened out in a way. If you haven't seen them in a minute, that takes your breath. And that's kind of my view at seeing this health center now. Started in, I think, 73 with the mission of taking care of community. That the gentleman that began this organization initially realized that the community they felt like they represented, the community they were from, these are gay men, these are attorneys by and large, you would think things would have gone well in terms of their health care. But what this group of men recognized from themselves and the reports of their friends was that they could very well be insured, be able, be all those things, but presenting themselves to a medical provider could be dangerous. Could mean that they would not get skilled care. People didn't know or had not had the opportunity to learn the particulars of LGBT health. That's one piece. Second piece is they were not culturally competent. So the language could go really awry. The comfort level in delivering care, nowhere to be found. In fact, people were going to their medical providers and being discharged from care. We don't do that here. I don't know anything about that. Oh, do you need psychological help? These were the situations that people were confronting. So they, you know, as folks will, they decided to make a new thing. That new thing was a tiny thing and began at the perfect time. I don't think we could have done any better in terms of a beginning. I do think of the organization very much like watching a child grow. That by the time the organization got to like a little bit beyond toddler stage, walking, but it's sort of on the edges, not making a lot of sense. You know, things were going and it was out of good heart, but not processed. HIV happened. And so everything that we needed to become had to happen right that moment, right there. And I will say that, you know, not too much backing up, mostly proudly forward in building staff and building skill and building locations, build, until what we're looking at, what you all are seeing now is a dream for a lot of our clients. A lot of our clients have been with the health system for many years. So the view that I'm talking about of the one building at 1407 or even before that has expanded into something that I see them come in often, and they come into the pharmacy a lot. So if I'm down that way, I might see folks that I've known for a long time. You can feel them be pleased and proud that this is their medical home. And I think that's what all of us always wanted. Even when we were in less than pristine conditions or places, we tried to elevate that space with care and respect. So that's where you've landed. I think that I used a lot of soft feeling words in there. Somebody else is going to take care of you technically. I have absolutely every confidence that people will do that today and while you're on your feet at work. Again, my goal here is to offer you tools today to feel comfortable to do your work, to support you around that this morning, and then as we go forward. So again, ask questions that you might have, express what's in there, and even if it doesn't come out today, know that I'm somewhere, probably right here, but I can be reached. You can reach out to me and talk through any things that I might have missed or areas you feel like I could illuminate better. So that's my open, and we'll go to the lovely PowerPoint. This is the part I hate because I'm not technically adept, so bear with me. Hold on. That's not it, and that's not it. I think this is it. We'll find out in a minute, won't we? Look at that. Yeah, I get this happy every time. I'm not kidding you. Can you see the screen in a way that makes sense to you? Can you see what I'm doing here?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, good. Then are you seeing like one big slide or a series of slides? And does it matter to you? Are you seeing one slide or a succession of slides?
One
We see
slide.
one slide.
Ha. Man,
You
I
got
love
it.
when this works. I'm telling. Well, no, it's different every time if they would just show me the same thing. So, I start with the slide you're looking at because I really, for me, there's no better way to ground this than in social justice. That was the aim, whether the folks that began this organization had these words, social justice or any of that, their aim was grounded here. Of all forms of inequality, injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhuman. If we cannot take care of our citizens that need us in ways that allow them to be themselves and ask for care in a way that makes sense, we're not doing our job. So there has to be balance between process and still heart. So again, I'm going to talk to you about how to make the heart go in process. All righty. How did this place get a name? Who are these people? Why do we name this thing? When the organization began, the gentleman that began the organization looked for LGBT folks who embodied some of the ideas that we've talked about of care and bravery and standing out front, being who they are. Over time, that can mean different things, but I'll tell you about these two people and then add another person to the mix of what we're talking about. So if you've talked to people over time about your new job, you've had people call Whitman Walker Walt Whitman. Whitman, I don't know. People get the name very confused about what it is. And most people can decipher, but I'm going to tell you why we're here like this. Walt Whitman was identified as an honorable and not icon, but somebody that could be recognized within the LGBT community as an interesting and accomplished man. You probably all know Walt's writing from like Leaves of Grass, other poetry, essays, really prolific writer. Walt, also, the reason I think that they chose him here was that piece, but he also served as a medic or a medical sort of assistant around in the Civil War. That touches me because there was no other way to, one, he did not have to do that. Okay, so to offer comfort and care in a dangerous situation is always amazing. Part of what Walt did as a human was to write letters between troops that had been wounded and their families. You know that there were no other way. There's no other way to get communication. Most of these, or a lot of these people were illiterate. There's a longer story there, but the writing was difficult, could be difficult. And so for him to be able to take their words and send them to family members that cared about them, that did not know anything about them, is amazing to me. Some of the letters still exist in the Smithsonian, and they are worth your view. Walt's writing, so when I talk about how people identify, Walt's writing was his largest expression of being a gay man. He had romantic relationships that he talked about within his essays and his poems. But the term gay was not in wide usage, or maybe not usage by Walt Whitman at that time. So you won't see Walt Whitman say, yeah, and I had this relationship. It just was out of time for where he lived. But it's clear, again, from the writing that there was romantic attachment and love. So that's Walt Whitman. Mary Edwards Walker is probably lesser known to you. Mary was, in my mind, a serious gender rebel. She was very much about women's body autonomy, but in reading her writing, in having a sense of the time, Mary's view did not extend beyond women of her own class and race. So body autonomy for a group of women. Some other women were left out of that. The autonomy was, in my mind, really smart in that she talked about women's clothing of the day being constrictive and unhealthy. that the corseting restricted breathing, so women couldn't do a lot of vigorous work or walking or anything for that matter. And the skirts themselves hindered movement. They also served as a vector for germs if a woman went out. And we're talking about in this area, DC, Maryland, and Virginia, what it looked like at that point was pretty rural. Lots of, you know, dirt roads or not paved streets and sewage kind of just running by. If you've been, of course you've traveled, so you see that people live in different ways, and we've lived in those ways here. Mary's take was the skirts swept up this unclean soil, water, and then walked this stuff back into your house, to your kids, to your family. Makes sense to me. And she wrote an amazing amount about this. Her personal clothing was a demonstration of those values. That she was asked once, why are you wearing men's clothes? These are my clothes, my clothing. It doesn't have anything to do with that. Mary also was one of the first women to graduate from medical school in America. Syracuse Medical School was hers. You're looking at a picture of her wearing a Medal of Honor. She also served during the Civil War as a medic, not as a surgeon, not her trained skill, but pretty much what Walt Whitman did. Helped out. She was captured and reclaimed by the Union Army for, I think, 2 soldiers or something like that. And she was awarded this medal. The military can be confusing in the medal, not because of Mary, because of qualifications on the medal. Her medal was rescinded. I think this picture demonstrates Mary wearing the medal post the medal being decertified for her. Her take was, I did the work, I won this, I'm wearing this award. And story is told that Mary wore the medal to her grave. Don't know that for a fact. I do know that President Jimmy Carter, after a number of years, reinstated the medal and re-awarded it to her granddaughter. So there you are. Things do come around. So that's Mary Edwards Walker. Max Robinson is a personal hero for me. Max grew up in Virginia, a Virginia native, with a brilliant voice and a journalistic mind. His first work was in, I'm not sure where in Virginia now, but it was in a time where Black folks could not be seen upon TV unless they were shown as perpetrators in some way or clowns in some way. That was not Max. Max got a job at a TV station. The downside of that was that Max was not allowed to be seen on the TV. I get to play around with stuff. Max's TV appearances look like this. You could hear Max's voice, but you could not see Max. They ran a screen out. Go to commercial, run the screen out, Max sit back there, talk, then we'll pull the screen away, and Max is gone. He did that for a while, secured a job here in Washington, D.C., and on his last day in Virginia, Max moved the screen. And he was seen. He delivered his news and came here as the first Black co-anchor in Washington, D.C., went on to national news. But before he left here, his one of the most amazing gifts he gave us was, not too long after he got here, Dr. King was assassinated. The news that Max was able to get and offer this community was beyond all other. One, we had trust in him. He could go in the street, talk to people, and he had a heart to understand why people were rebelling, were upset. He won several Emmys for that work, went on to national, but became ill. Max came back here, entered Howard University Hospital, where he died. there were all kinds of stories about what had happened to him, blah, blah, blah. And his second greatest gift, I think, or maybe the first, depending on who you talk to, is that he allowed his friends and family to disclose that he had died of HIV. The stigma around HIV is still amazingly great. Think about the stigma 20 years ago. For him to take what is an amazing legacy and add that to it, he didn't have to do it. But what he did, that acknowledgement, opened the door, one, for people delivering HIV care and treatment to see that it was not just the narrow community that we have been focusing on and educating, that it's this much, not this much. Without Max's bravery and honesty, I think we would still be behind in terms of how we talk to people of color, how we talk to Black folks about HIV and safety. So those are our pivots. Those are our placeholders. And for me, if I lose space of what I'm doing or why I'm doing it, I try to return to these folks. Tell me why. Tell me why I'm doing that. So there you go. If I sound still really enamored with this, I am. It's an honor to work out of these people's legacy for me. So, in a really short note, this is how the history is laid out. Let's see. Ran on grants a lot. I mean, we asked for money, we wrote grants. If people couldn't pay, they came anyway. And we took care of them. But you know, business model wise, how long can you last? We did for a long time, but we got to the 2000s and we're more adult in that time and realized we need to do something. So there was restructuring that went on. And the outcome of this is where you're sitting now. Well, not literally where you're sitting, but you know, we became an FQHC, a federally qualified medical home. And that allows us to do many things as a traditional medical center would do in terms of billing, coding, all that good stuff. So that's where you've landed. A lot of work has happened, but we still are developing, still growing, still looking all the time. How do we get better at this? Our vision. And again, if you need a reason to come back to why you're doing any of this, this is it. And we envision a society where all individuals are seen for who they are, treated with dignity and respect, and afforded equal opportunity to health and well-being. Through care, advocacy, research, and education, we empower all persons to live healthy, love openly, and achieve equality and inclusion. So is the birth of this organization and a great deal of the root of this organization is around LGBT health, and we hold that proudly. What we've done is widen our vision to encompass community in total with a special interest and sensitivity for those that identify as LGBTQ. That's where you are. Questions? Anything yet come up for you? Alrighty. This is the physical location. Somebody mentioned being at Whitman Walker. The way we talk about these buildings, some with names and some with not. So Whitman Walker is the whole business, is everything. That's the overarching name and identification. The building at 1525, the big glass, fancy building there, well, two of them are real fancy now, is where most of our healthcare happens in Northwest. That's where our dental clinic is. This is where one of our pharmacies is. This is LabCorp. A lot of that is done in here. Yeah. Right now we're doing a lot of COVID work out of this building as well. The next picture there is the Max Robinson Center, named for Max. And the same services are available east of the river. Smaller location and somewhat of a different vibe. But it's all family, it's all home. And the way that the texture of what's offered at Max reminds me of what we had before the big tall building. All good, but that homey, people knowing each other in the waiting area, staff knowing clients that are not necessarily theirs, but in that orbit of care of Max. That's kind of the feel there. I'm not clear on what's happening with youth services in this building now, but I don't think that they're in there right now. I think that they're working remotely as well, but our youth services at Eastern Market offered a great opportunity for youth to come together, learn about health in their own communities, and be able to be ambassadors to those communities. School, church, their friends, parents, family, all of that. And not just around HIV, the testing in there would be around sexual health, so STI, HIV, sexual health in terms of pregnancy testing, all those things go on or went on in that building. We tried to take a view, what do these young folks need? But in my mind, it was a safe place for them to go, talk, be themselves. That's what I always experienced there, was that freeness. And the last one is Liz. If you see that little white block at the bottom, that was our one of the original buildings, the Elizabeth Taylor Center. A lot of the healthcare went in that little block, and we cobbled other buildings together over time to try and get more space. What's happening now is the bottom building, the white building, still exists, and that houses the corner. That's our art expression facing out towards the community. And I'm not sure what else is in there now in that piece. A lot of the admin has moved into right above where Liz is. That I think we have one floor. I don't know now. It's been a year since I've been in this building, but my office would be in here, external affairs, legal, just research is in that building. So there's a lot of stuff going on in there, and above and behind are apartment buildings. This is a property that Whitman Walker owns or is in partnership with. So some of the ways that we scrambled early on in our life, not to say we don't scramble now, but the idea of going into business is a help for us to sustain, to not be always worried, oh my God, are we going to make it to next year? I think we figured out a way to do that. And that's a lot of growth over the time that we're talking about. That's where we live. These are the things we do. Please, if there's anything that I want you to take more than this away from it, but please take away this snapshot. Often people come and they think, oh, that they do HIV care. We do a lot more than that.
Sorry.
Yes?
I'm going to put my phone up. I just want to take a picture of this screen. Is that okay?
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. No, you know what? Keisha, is that you?
Yes.
Hold on a second, because I think I can either share the slide with you, mail it to you if you give me an email address, or I'm not sure if Nyla's here, whether somebody's going to hand you a packet with this information in it. If you want to shot it, go ahead, but I think it's going to come to you in another way.
Okay. Thank you.
Very cool.
Yes,
If you don't see it in a few days, you can get my email and I will send. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. But again, depending on where you're facing, and especially you all that are facing out towards public, this is a good crib note to have. You're going to see people that need things that they don't know we do. Just point them back towards us. Okay. So this is where we are now. Okay. Now it says all the materials will be mailed to everyone. So there you go. So I've done a lot of talking to set you up in terms of where you are and a little bit of a point to why we are. But this is it feels long to me, but this nails down why it's important to marry cultural competence with healthcare. I'm going to be quiet for a minute, let you kind of scan that, and then I'll speak again. Okay, so for me in this past year or so, I've heard more about health disparities from the general public than I believe I ever have heard. That somehow we've gotten the message that healthcare is not arbitrarily equal for everybody that tries to access. A lot of what we do is in an acknowledgement of those disparities and how we can rectify them on an individual basis and on a community basis or more through advocacy so we can touch all people with better health care. If we don't really keep an eye towards cultural competency in this work, people only get half or maybe a quarter of what they need if they cannot tell us who they are and what they actually need. Alrighty. So it's asking all of us to be aware of your own personal beliefs and your values and how these might affect client care. So we talked to you about this with the knowledge that a lot of our clients have experienced discrimination in other venues, other places, not been treated well. They might come with the weight of that on them, and that's not a fault. That is a reality of what non-culturally competent care means in the system. So they're generally waiting to be sure that they're going to be treated and be safe. So they'll be watching, and that can be, it can feel pressurized, but no, on some level we all do it. That maybe this is not the place that we do it, but somewhere else I go and that same situation arises for me. Are you going to see me? Are you going to treat me well? How are you going to speak to me? If you can just turn that around and put yourself in that space where somebody's unsure, it helps. It helps me slow it down a little bit. They're not saying that I might not be, but the situation globally might be, and they're asking the question, are you going to be helpful to me or not? And I want us all to be able to answer yes. Yes, I'm going to be. And I'll do it with some level of ease on my part because I know how to do that. Okay, can you see a video? Sometimes this plays and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes I have sound and it doesn't. So I'm gonna start it. If it's not playing, somebody just call out and let me know that it's not happening, because it'll look playing over here. Can you hear? Okay.
You probably can't even speak.
Okay. I'm really glad to have that work. Sometimes it doesn't. I feel like I try to talk through the points that they make, but I'm going to stop talking And I'm going to ask you all what you thought about that video, and did anything seem like a real teaching kind of moment for you, or was it just reaffirmation of what you know? So start as you will. Keisha, I'm going to point to you again since you are the first person on the screen.
Okay, so I've not to say that I'm perfect, because I'm not, but I have been around people who have, you know, had those same, you know, kind of thoughts about people, you know, like prejudging people. And it's something that's, you know, kind of touching to me, you know, at times to hear those kinds of things. But of course, that's their own thought. But it does bother to hear people, you know, prejudge people, or, you know, be biased towards people just, you know, just because I don't like that people do that. So I've been around it, I've experienced it, and it's not something that I enjoy, you know, seeing or hearing people do. It's very hurtful to, you know, experience that. And it probably has been done to me, but I probably would never know. But it's definitely not something that I would engage in or even do, because again, nobody's perfect. Everybody has something you know going on, and you said it. You know, we may even be going through certain things, maybe not in the moment, you know, that some others are going through it, but we all have, you know, some of those same kind of things going on, just in a different way. So just to know that people, such as, you know, what you all are doing, are putting it, you know, out there, it kind of will give people, you know, a chance to kind of think, you know, am I really, you know, doing this to people? And if so, maybe you should stop.
Yes, but maybe you should stop part is absolute. Thank you for that, Keisha, and I'll tag in after everyone's spoken. So Sanj, you're up next there. Are you in?
Sure. Yeah, I think I echo, you know, all of Keisha's sentiments. It's sort of easy to relate, because some of those experiences, I think, when you walk around and look a certain way, bias plays into your life every day. So those microaggressions, macroaggressions that we experience on an everyday basis. So for me, it's more so just illuminating something that I know exists and something that I've experienced myself. And so that's kind of just what I was thinking throughout the video.
Right. Thank you. And I'll say this is not to point at anybody, but it's good to see this video, and good to know that you can be either party in this. You can be the person being discussed or judged, but you can also be on the other side. And I always ask folks to stand in the space where you have been judged. Where's that been you? And think about how it might have blocked you or been unpleasant, or whatever that means. Just try and switch spots. So I think that's what I heard from both of you. So Sharon, you're up last. I can't hear you, babe.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, I just unmuted.
That's okay.
I agree with what has been said before. I know we all, I'm one of the older ones here, and I grew up in a different generation, so I'm sure over the years have had those type of things. I've learned to not think like that, mainly because I have a really big family, and we have all kinds of people in my family, race, gender. I have one of my nieces is a transgender woman. So I've learned over years to just accept people and not think, have those type of biases when I approach people. I try to approach people and think, when I'm in the pharmacy, somebody comes up to me and they're yelling and they're upset, I try to step back and say, okay, maybe they're having a bad day. Let's see what it's all about, and try to deal with them on an even keel. But I mean, it's been years of trying to learn that. And I'm so happy that this younger generation, it's more intuitive of them. They have that, right? They don't think like that for most part. There are some of them that still do, but for most part, the younger generation are more accepting of people. And I'm so happy to see that that's where we're going in the world.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you very much for that. I'm just going to tag a little bit. You're not the oldest person here, I promise you. That I'm over 60, and some of what you talk about in terms of blocks and times and decades of thinking, I've been that weird girl for my whole life. So the idea of how things have progressed, I know that in 1970 there were people that could see me and work with me and be respectful to me, and I knew that there weren't, and I know that in 2021. The same folks. So I hope that we are graduating out of silly and hurtful, but I don't know. And I don't want to tag my younger colleagues and my younger family with knowing it all. The language changes, the thinking of who's other can change. So we're all struggling. We all have to continue to get up on it because we're confronted with who's decided or who has broken free of the constraint of not being themselves. And so now here you are, visible to me. How do I work? So just that. Everybody that's here has been here. I promise you, in all generations. We're all here. So thank you all for that. I appreciate it. What am I doing? I'm getting ready to mess something up. Don't do that. All right, so we have that going. If we accept that as part of how we understand things, that we're always measuring who we are in relationship to some other thing or some other person. So you walk up to me and I'm like, okay, so how's this? Who are you and who am I? And often it'll be you're a thing that's different from me. That's the othering that can happen. We need to work on how we get that not to happen. And there's some tools and some thinking. So how do we do it? We want to know when we don't know stuff. So develop and nurturing constructive uncertainty. And I really think of this as humility. Often these trainings now are talked about in terms of cultural humility. I haven't moved to that point yet because I do think that there's some technical skill involved here and we can work towards humility. I don't want to just say, well, we've learned something and now we're humble about it. Maybe not. But to stand in a place and look at your colleague or your customer and say, I'm not sure, but I can find out. Easy to do and important to do. And then look at ourselves. How am I feeling if I'm pushing you off? How am I feeling about you? And how am I translating that feeling to you? Everybody's not easy. Everybody we meet on a daily is not going to be easy, or we're not going to resonate with that person. But how do we even those feelings up to still be of help? There's plenty of people I see, well, not so much anymore, but plenty of people that I don't want to be their friend, but I can certainly help you in a genuine way. I think that's what we're asking for. So understand why you might believe a thing and then try to work yourself out of that. Don't suppress it. Don't know, I have a reaction to X, Y, and Z and go, well, I'll just ignore that while I'm at work, because it will not work. It doesn't work in life. We're humans, and our feelings and thoughts either will be expressed directly by us or will be expressed in a backhanded way by us. We've all had a shot where somebody wanted to say something to us, but they didn't feel like they could, so they went around another way to say it, sometimes skillful and sometimes not. But it's going to happen. So I'm saying try to express what you're feeling and understand what you're thinking and feeling. And create opportunities for positive exposure. So in this world, generally I tell people, well, we're going to give you all the opportunities for positive exposure around LGBT folks. If you hang around till June, or May, so in a moment, there's going to be a million Pride activities, and there still will be. Most of them will be virtual still, which in a way is better because we can just kind of click in and get a sense of what's going on. But I would say when those opportunities arise, take them. At least get a view of what the community actually is and who it is through their own language and what they're expressing to us. Those things are not, if they're private, they will be meant to be private and folks won't be able to visit. But I'd say respectfully visit the opportunities that are there. Talk to your colleagues. On an institutional level, I think we're doing it all the time. I think we're challenging each other all the time. I think we're putting things in place to protect ourselves and to protect our clients. We're always reviewing our work. We review our work in a way that sometimes is like, I can't believe we know that kind of granular information, but we do. There's a million ways, maybe not a million, but ways to give feedback and to receive feedback from this organization. So know that it's not just you going out, but somebody, some way, somebody's going to tell us how we're doing. That's not just on the technical end, but the cultural end as well. Keep all those things in mind. One of the things that we need to do as we're meeting any culture, any group of people, is to figure out what is the language, what's the currency today of the words I'm using. What's good, what's not good? How am I clearly understood? In this, we're going to talk a little bit about trans health, terminology, some demographics, and some more disparities. Are you all good, or do you need a little break or shake or something? You feeling okay? Cool, let's keep going then, because you'll get a break after this, huh? So, years ago, when I first started doing this work, a list very much like this, which will probably appear later in the presentation, is what I would go out with. And the people I was working with often were only doing this because they had to. They recognized the community was there, they recognized they weren't doing a good job, and they thought, technically, and this is not a thought that's done, but they thought that if they learned these words, could use these words, that would fix the situation. Okay, so we know what to call you now, it's good. Well, in some ways that makes sense. But if it's still delivered backhand or off in some way, or as other, the language doesn't carry. But I offer you this because it is language as currency. Some people identify with these terms personally, some people don't, but anybody in the LGBT community will understand what you mean if you use these words. They will probably respond to you in this way if you use these words. It's become sort of shorthand. What I will point out to you that might be different on this list than some other lists you see that are like this is the emotionally, women who are attracted emotionally and sexually to other women. When I first started doing this, and other work I've seen really points to only the sexual behavior. That seems to be the whole interest. And that's not going to hold the community together. That doesn't hold relationships together. It doesn't hold lives together. People are emotionally and sexually connected in the same way other humans are. However you choose to be connected, that's how people in this community are connected. No real difference that I can ascertain, not really. At any life stage, at young folks, at elders, that it seems to mirror what folks do. Meet, partner, date, partner, you know, the regular stuff. Bisexual, I'll point out one thing that it does not mean. People have, in the past and currently, offer the idea that bisexual people cannot be monogamous, or they're on the fence, or they can't make up their mind. Any number of those kinds of ideas come forward when we talk about bisexual folks. It doesn't mean any of that. Bisexual people can be in monogamous relationships if they choose to be with either gender and still identify as bisexual, either because they've had past relationships that are absolutely significant, because they still carry the attraction, and this is how they view themselves. You're not identified by your partner. You know what I'm saying? This is your individual life. So what it is not often what people think it is. Transgender is a term and an idea and a life that many people seem to be interested in this moment. And I want them to humanize in this moment as well, not just an interest or a view. So transgender here is an umbrella term for people whose gender identity, who they view themselves as, and expression, how they show us, or behavior is different than those typically associated with the sex assigned at birth. Now that, I think we might get a picture in our head about who that might be, but frankly, and I'll speak about women now, I don't know a woman yet that doesn't transgress this. However she identifies, we all do something that's out of the realm of the expectation for women's lives. And that could be judged over time or culture or family or whatever, but it's easy not to act like, because we have very narrow views of what is acceptable for some folks. So I'm saying that the level, again, of how we think is narrow, but how we actually are is pretty wide. That transgender people are people like the rest of us. That's just it. Queer is it's an interesting term, and I would say not all people hearken to it. And that could really be around age and race, culture, class. Many Black people I know that are my age dismiss this term as being something that negative that we've already been called. If you're in the community and this is something that you've received as a negative, you really might not want to own it. It does seem to be a term that is more youth focused and in my mind almost more academic. That I find people that are coming out of university and having studied theory might hearken to this term. It's understood, it's general currency, but I've had people identify in this way to me. However, in conversation, I have never used any of these terms towards a client. They come in, they introduce themselves, I see them, hi, how are you? And it's never happened that I have to then turn around and go, I see you're gay. It's not a flow that will happen. Gotta tell you. You want to understand what people want to be called in terms of their name and their pronoun. But all the rest of this, not really necessary. If you're on front line, name and pronoun, and offering those things consistently, receiving them consistently is the important piece for you. Absolutely the important piece. Questions there?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have been, I've been around the LGBTQ community, not really, participating in like pride and things like that, but I do have friends and family that's in the community. But the whole pronoun thing, and I just kind of heard about this, so I just don't know what they mean by pronouns. Like I heard someone at children say that somebody's signature had pronouns, but she didn't say like what the pronouns were. So I just want to get a little bit of background on when people talk about pronouns, like what does that mean? I know you said, your pronouns were was she, her. So I just want to get a little more understanding of that so that, if I ever have to, know about that, I can know up front. But I have been saying, let me try to figure this out on my own. But since we're talking about it, I feel like this is the time where I can just ask.
And that's what this whole day is about. Yay. Thank you for being here. Thank you for putting it in the world. It does seem like a concept that's sort of out here. But no, we're doing that all day, every day anyway. So pronouns, I said my pronouns are she and her. In American English, those are judged as female feminine pronouns. My identification is feminine or female in the way I carry that. So in referring to me, it's my name, which has no gender attached to it, 0. You have no idea who that person is. But my pronoun, if I wanted, well, my pronoun, the one I use, does reflect who I feel like I am, who I am presenting to be. She and her, and any pronoun takes the place of someone's name. So if you say Dee did something and the other person says no, and you point, she did, and there's a group of people, they're going to have some sense of who to at least dismiss from who the she is. So again, it's an identifier, but it's also an internal sense of own. I own this identity. That you don't get to call me this thing or that thing because I'm this thing. Am I making myself clear at all?
Yeah, I think so. So with a pronoun, so if I was I guess if my name is Keisha Williams and then on my signature I put that my pronouns are, I guess if I was I guess you know, a transgender or something like that. Like if I wanted to be identified as a guy, I guess that's when I would put my pronouns are he. I guess is that the example?
Okay, I'm going to try and roll back. All right. So if I was a transgender person, because to say a transgender is othering, so you're just pointing a transgender. So if I was a transgender person and my physical manifestation and my name were not in concert with the pronouns that I'm using. So you're saying your name is the same, but you identify as male. And so on your signature line, you put he and him, or let's just say that. Then that's an expression. It doesn't matter. I mean, it matters to you and it matters to my level of respect in terms of interacting with you and how I refer to you outside of your presence. But it is your right to identify as you do. It's not so much I want you to identify me as, what we're saying is I do. And if you want to speak with me, you have to call me by my name. Not by my name, but an identifier that has something to do with me, not just what you want me to be. So it's a matter of pausing and actually meeting somebody. Hi, my name is Dee. My pronouns are she and her. How may I address you? It might elicit a pronoun or two, a name. If you don't get a pronoun from a greeting like that, I say just move on. You've opened the door to it. People either understand and express or they don't. But you've done what you need to do. And I would say in situations like that, those of you that are front facing, think about, really strive towards gender neutral language. So this morning I've heard you guys and different things like that. If you can trim that from your general operational language, that's going to help. Good morning, how are you? Doesn't necessarily need a ma'am or a sir behind it, if delivered in a way that is friendly. Good morning, how are you? Good morning, how can I address you today? Those are both good options. in my mind. You
Oh.
don't have to add the other piece. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. For my whole first day of training, I understand the he, she, and pronouns, but I'm my first day of training. I've been keep telling me if you don't know, use they, and that's a kind of a little hard for me to wrap my head around. I mean, I understand the concept, but to get used to saying they when I'm talking about a female or a male, a person in general, it's I think that's going to take some time for me.
And I hear you, and I think that some of it's overthinking, because we get a picture, we say she, and we get a picture in our head. We say he, we get a picture in our head. We say they, and for some of us, there's no picture yet. There's no thing. But I'm saying we use it all the time anyway. They said. They said.
But we're using it as a plural, but not with, I'm referring to one particular person as they. And so that's where I think where I'm going to have to get used to it.
I will say that in practice, in real practice, it's not that hard. I think when we think about it and try to, make it more solid, it makes it more confusing. Honestly, a good faith effort or gender neutral. You don't have to go that route. So yeah, I think that yes, using they is a new expression, just like a new expression can be for any group. That I watch people struggle over what to call all kinds of groups of people because they're hung up somewhere ago. Just ask folks. And until it becomes more of a natural thing. But honestly, I would say within community, we've all tried to work around having a better understanding and being more agile around it. It's not just you or people outside the community. But I will say that it is valuable for folks that use that pronoun to be honored, to watch somebody be seen in a way that they might not other places is amazing. And know that you can offer that to another human being almost in passing. What's in passing to us is real, real, real to a lot of our clients. Misgendered in here, you're hoping, you're not expecting it. And so it will hit you differently than if you're somewhere else that has not deemed themselves safe. So we really do emphasize this. It's very important. So easiest to use no gendered language for some of us, just easier. If so, ask what is appropriate for you. If you have electronic medical records in front of you, look truly at the name and the line and how people want to be referred to, called as. And one last thing, know that you're going to make some errors. Know that that's going to happen. Apologize for your error if it's seen, if you know it, and move on. Don't get hung up on it because it will hang you up if you get like strangled by it. Just allow yourself some grace to grow in it. So I hear you, Sharon. It can be difficult, but that doesn't mean we don't approach it. Make the effort every day.
Mm-hmm.
Does that help at all? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for asking. I want to answer these questions now or have some discussion around them now. The idea is to send you back where you're going in a way that makes sense. Okay. Here, and I think I got another video where some trans people are going to talk to you, and I hope this one works. Let me know again if it's not, eh? Did folks have trouble with, I understand, some of you had trouble with sound, or everybody? No? Well, hold on, I can't hear any of you. You could hear?
It was just me. I couldn't hear it all.
Oh, I am so sorry. Look, this is what I can do about that. One, I can share with you the name of the video. You can always go, I mean, it's YouTube. You can go back and look at it. Or, now I will we'll send it to you, okay?
Yeah, that works. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for speaking up. I appreciate it. The video is cute, and but I think it makes the points that it would take me a lot longer to make. That one, trans folks are just folks, just folks. Transgender does not necessarily explain a lot more about a person in terms of sexual orientation. It might not mean anything in terms of what you know about any hormonal or surgical interventions they might have had, any partners they might have. It's just, it's a place they are standing. Again, it's this person, not me in relationship to everybody else, myself. When we are talking about transgender folks, we're talking about gender identity, your internal sense of who you are, male, female, or both, something that can, a word that we don't seem to have, or a word that's not readily known. All people have a gender identity. The idea, however, is most of us, a lot of us, don't think about it. We came home with our parents and we were given a gender assigned by a doc. The parents honored that, called us a name that reflected that, and treated us, societally treated us like whatever gender they saw. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's the identity that we have. For some of us, that offering assigned and being treated as was off base for a lot of us. And even if it's not totally off base, it might very well be in a manner of being off base, that nothing is 100%. So again, we're talking about a binary situation often of, well, are you a boy or a girl? Nature would point out to us that there are other ways of being, and it's not just a black and white or a binary situation. How we express that might have a lot to do with culture and safety. So who can I come out as? How can I get from point A to point B safely and still express myself? I would venture to say that many people have that kind of struggle on a daily. Is my expression safe and okay for the world? Can I get through? So when I first locked my hair, it was in the mid 80s. And I struggled with jobs. I struggled with how I was perceived in any venue. It's like, okay, so she's dressed from the neck down, but we couldn't get with the hair. And I did shave my head like twice, trying to like, oh, okay, I can't negotiate this. Until 40 years later, here we are. And that finally we're okay in some markets. So again, the ways we express, all of these things can change over time. Might not be right for this time and place, but maybe this is the time and place you are. Gender expansive and non-conforming. I'm sure, and often when people are gender expansive and non-conforming, they would use the pronoun they or them. And that's to remove that idea of being on one end or the other, the binary idea that people are always pushing against what seems to be a not true thing, or at least not true for them, that they're not going to either end of male or female, they're somewhere else. And we can ask and try to find out what that somewhere else is and what that means for that person. But those are some definitions. People can, you'll probably find some that challenge them and some that are in alignment. But in order to do that, there's reading and exploration on your part. More definitions. On this one, I have the term cisgender. Have people heard that term? You can raise your hand, or yeah, I see nodding. Yeah. Okay. That is so different than even 5 years ago. I credit media, although I really caution folks about what media they use to learn about this community, because some of it's purely for entertainment, and that's going to be salacious. That's how entertainment is. But the word grew out of an idea of continuing to honor trans people as not other. We used to use the term biological male and female to refer to those of us that are cisgender. When we call someone biological male or female, that made those folks real. Biology was on their side. And so those are real women and real men. Transgender people became the construct. Well, that's another thing. That's them over there. The idea is that it's all a construct. it's all what we've decided as a society and as people. So body, sex assigned at birth, gender identity, those are congruent for you, cisgender person. If something else is true for you, might identify as transgender or not. Transgender people can identify as, I think I probably have a slide to talk about that. Yes, I do. Transgender people can identify as transgender, or they can identify as men and women, or non-binary, all of those. A trans woman, these terms in the middle, trans woman, male to female, person assigned, those are not terms that I see much anymore. Trans woman you might see, but male to female, I haven't seen that in years in terms of how people are referring. You can read that in literature, but it's not a term that people hearken to. Transgender man, same thing. The idea is, well, that's more of an idea than I think we need to go into now, but understand that these are definitions: transgender woman, transgender man, transgender person, or just man and woman. Make sense to you? Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Know that you're gonna, if these are fairly new ideas to you, you're going to have to come back to this again because they're new ideas. It's process. But the process in my mind should happen alongside of the process of actually working with clients. So I'm a process over here, and some of what I do with you will be processed, but I want to look smooth when I get to you, as smooth as I can. And I know that's what you're all doing in here today. These terms here are nothing I'm trying to teach you, but it's an effort to show that this is not a European construct. Often when people are challenging LGBT life in general, they will say that especially people of color have learned this behavior from European folks. And my argument is that all over the world, people have had a range of sexualities, gender identities. These are some from around the world. And since you'll see them later, it really is just to illustrate. Transsexual, not a term that most trans people use, although some older folks do. And often it has something to do with surgery or hormonal intervention. When you read it, that's what you're reading, is they're talking about that. Genderqueer, gender fluid. are terms that some folks use as self-identifiers, and that is to push out the idea of the binary. Mostly young people, again, that falls into that kind of academic category for me, although I see queer used more and more. I think some of us feel a way about it. I mean, I will say I feel a way about it, but not so much that I'm gonna fight about it. I think I've seen enough evolution of language in all the identities I hold over time that particular one's not going to be the one I put the brakes on. I put the brake on it for myself. This is not how I identify, but I use the language as currency. I hear you and I can see you. Yeah. Let me see if there's anything else up here you need. When we're talking about gender affirmation, we used to use the term sex change. For so many reasons, that is not a term that's used. We talk about gender affirmation, gender transition. There's a process when you open with the 40 going the extra mile. There you go. The going the extra mile video, that's really focused on our legal services. And they talk about guiding, folks on that video talk about being guided through some of the more legal work that had to be done or is done by some folks. This is not a path for everyone. For some folks, there is no hormones, there is no surgery, there's their internal work, but nothing external. For some folks, this can be a path. For some folks, it's some of this, but not all of that. Often depending on safety. We have trans clients from, I believe, late teens. The oldest person I know about right now, or as of last year, was in their 70s. People come out at different times. They have the ability to come out at different times. Some folks have raised an entire family and realize this is something I need to do now for myself, period. That's it. Once they've stood everything else up. Different times and different ways for folks. But I've never, over all this time, I've never seen anybody take this road lightly. It's not for fun or for show or any of that. It's a serious thought. How many folks? Not 5, a lot. These numbers are a little old. I can't remember. I think maybe, 2018, somewhere in there. I hope they're not too old. But in the United States, 1.4, that number's low. And they have the breakdown of age here again. That could be skewed because of how surveys are done. How do we find people who's out, who's not out? I would say when you start looking for people 65 and over, I think they missed a lot of folks because they're just not responding and not in line for the surveys as offered. If people feel stigmatized, if they don't feel like they can come to you for care, they're going to miss it. Folks fall off of medications, folks fall off of all kinds of treatments because they can't access them without problem. If you know you're going someplace that it's going to be unpleasant for you, you don't go. It's just that simple. If I have to hassle it, I'm not going to do that. I'm trying to figure out where I want to land. We only have a few, but I feel like we're yeah, you know what? This is where I want to land. I've told you some of the challenges of trans folks. I think I've alluded to some of the challenges of just LGB folks. And so read all that into this, that despite being stigmatized, discrimination, health disparities, many folks in this community live amazing lives. Some of them will be your colleagues here or customers, that everybody is not busted or broken or suffering from some real dramatic thing. Most folks are just trying to live like all of us are just trying to live. Families and all kinds of things are part of that living. Okay. I'm going to call that done, aside from questions you might have. Really, anything about what's been covered, about the organization, anything like that?
I don't really have any questions, but what I will say is that I'm happy that I was able to attend this presentation because it's really going to help me, I think, once I get into actually working in the pharmacy area. So I would say that I'm pleased to be attending this orientation. Very good information.
Okay, and know that it does not stop right here. That one, anybody that talks to you is available to you later, either through Nile or directly to them. That we don't expect you to walk away and have like stuffed all this stuff in your head from everybody all day. Make your best effort. Make your best effort, and don't be afraid, and don't be tight. It's going to be, I think it'll be a good experience for you. The pharmacy has served a lot of folks really super well, and during pandemic, they have been a lifesaver to me. That I know I can call, get my meds, and I have been safe for a year because of the work that they've done there. So people appreciate what goes on, no doubt. Anybody else? Then, folks, what I will say, it's been a pleasure to meet you all. I take that really seriously. I think it's a privilege of mine that I get to meet folks as they arrive here. I hope we've offered you, at least in this section, something you can use. And again, reach out if anything has been missed or anything like that. I'm happy to help. So, end of my spiel. Thank you very much. I appreciate you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Have a good day, Nile. All back to you, I guess.
Hello, everyone. You now have a break. We'll take a break and be back on screen at 11:45.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me make sure the time is right. Did I say 11? Right, from now until 11:45, yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,